Welcome to Midweek, Experiments in Faithfulness. This is a weekly program where we learn and grow with each other in community. My name is Brent, and I'm the Program and Engagement Manager here at Beacon Hill Friends House. We are a Quaker Center for Learning right in the heart of downtown Boston. We're home to Beacon Hill Friends Meeting, and we're also a residential community of about 20 people. This is a series where we're learning about the Enneagram. If you're not familiar with it, you can check out the overview that I did called Why We Clash, Why We Click, where I gave a summary of all 9 Enneagram types. Since then, every 2 weeks, we've been taking a closer look at one Enneagram type at a time, looking at exactly what makes each one amazing, unique, and absolutely crucial in the world. Tonight, we're going to take a deep dive into the Type 4, the Individualist. Type 4s are fueled by a deep desire to understand their identity, create meaning, and be seen as special and authentic. But what's really going on beneath the surface? Whether you're a Type 4 yourself, love someone who is, or just want to better understand this personality type, this session will leave you with insights and tools to appreciate their perspective and support their journey. All right, so today we are doing a deep dive into the Enneagram Type 4, the Individualist. And going deep is fitting for our emotional, creative Type 4s. Now, at the end of the session, we're going to take a typing quiz to see how strongly you identify with Type 4 energy. The Enneagram isn't about what you do, it's about why you do it. So as we go through this deep dive, I'll invite you to look beneath the surface. Instead of asking, do I act like this? Ask yourself, does this feel like the story I've been living in for a long time? This isn't about labeling yourself, it's about getting curious. So let's take a deep breath and step into the rich, soulful, beautifully complex world of the Type 4. Type 4s aren't afraid to go deep emotionally, spiritually, existentially. If there's something tender, tragic, or beautiful beneath the surface, they will find it and probably turn it into poetry, while the rest of us are still trying to figure out what we're even feeling in the first place. What makes 4s stand out isn't just their creativity, it's the way they feel everything with high definition clarity. They're constantly scanning for meaning, for resonance, for something that says, this is me. But that intensity comes with an ache, a quiet, persistent fear that they're somehow missing something essential. So they try to stand out in hopes that they'll finally feel like they fit. It's not about being dramatic or self absorbed, although they can be both of those. It's about being real. 4s crave authenticity like oxygen. And when they're grounded in their truth, they bring this raw, breathtaking depth that can make the rest of us feel more human just by being near them. Now, growth for a 4 begins when they stop chasing uniqueness like it's a prerequisite for love and start trusting that their presence, their perspective, and their heart are already enough. Let's be honest, 4s don't just have quirks, they really like being quirky. This is the type that owns more journals than completed journal entries because each journal holds a specific era of their emotional evolution. They have playlists for every mood and a backup for when that mood inevitably shifts halfway through track 3. The 4 is a likely candidate to sometimes disappear to find themselves. They long to be deeply understood, But if you say, oh, yeah, I totally get you, they won't believe you. And if you say it too quickly, they will silently decide that you're not quite ready for their level of nuance. Fours are annoyed by bad lighting and mass produced decor because life should feel beautiful. Aesthetics are not optional, they are emotional support. And then there's the crying. While other types might feel awkward or embarrassed when the tears come, fours lean in because their tears are honest, unfiltered, beautiful, even. Crying is a badge of emotional attunement, and nothing feels more them than being moved to tears by a song or a sunset, or, let's face it, even a handwritten recipe from a grandmother they never met. They've mastered the art of the meaningful sigh, the slow gaze out the window, the ability to romanticize anything: heartbreak, solitude, a random Tuesday. This isn't performative. This is how they live. Life is meant to be felt, and fours are here to remind us to stop numbing out and start paying attention to the pain, the poetry, and the little moments that make it all worth it. At the heart of every type four is this quiet but persistent longing. See me, really see me. Fours want to be known in a way that feels soulful, not surface level. They're not interested in being liked for a version of themselves that's watered down or socially acceptable. They want to be loved for who they truly are: flaws, contradictions, intensity, all of it. And if they can express something deeply personal in a way that resonates with others, oh, that is the holy grail. It's not about being the best, it's about being real and having that realness recognized as beautiful and worthy. But here's the catch: that craving for significance can get tangled up in performance. The more they feel misunderstood or emotionally out of sync, the more they might double down on their uniqueness, building an identity around being different as a way to protect their tenderness. They might start to believe that if they're not special, they won't be loved. And so the cycle continues, intensifying emotions, searching for meaning, trying to find their place in a world that often feels way too shallow for their level of depth. True freedom for a four comes when they realize that their worth doesn't depend on standing apart. It shines through when they show up as they are, unfiltered, honest, and profoundly human. Fours carry this ache that's hard to put into words, but let's try. It's the fear that no matter how hard they search, something important is missing. That maybe they're flawed in some invisible, unfixable kind of way, and that everyone but them got the manual for how to be human. So instead of trying to fit in, they often lean away from the crowd, hoping that if they stand out enough, someone will notice what's truly them and say, yes, that's what I've been looking for. The worst thing that you could do to a four is treat them just like everyone else, dismiss their feelings, skip past their depth like they're just another face in the room. Even well meaning compliments like, you blend in perfectly, can land like a punch to the soul. They want to be seen for who they are, not shoved into a mold. But sometimes that fear of being ordinary can get in the way of actual connection. Because if no one ever truly gets them, it reinforces the very narrative that they're afraid of, that they are somehow destined to be alone in their uniqueness. So the work for fours is learning that being truly known doesn't mean being flawless or dramatic or different on purpose. It means letting someone close enough to see the real you, even when that you doesn't come with a soundtrack or with the perfect lighting. Fours are emotional alchemists. They can take sorrow, longing, even full blown existential despair and turn it into something beautiful. A poem, a playlist, a life philosophy. This is their superpower. They don't run from hard feelings, they sit with them, they make meaning out of them, and somehow they leave beauty in their wake. Fours are also some of the most emotionally intuitive people you'll ever meet. They can sense when something's off, name what's not being said, and stay present in someone else's pain without trying to tidy it up. But that gift comes with some real challenges. Fours often feel like they're riding an emotional roller coaster with no seatbelt. Highs and lows, joy and sorrow, connection and disconnection, all in one day, maybe even before lunch. And when they feel like something's missing in their life, which is often the case, they can get stuck in a loop of comparison and longing that steals their ability to enjoy what's right in front of them. Here's the kicker: sometimes they even reject happiness on purpose, not consciously, but if joy feels too easy or too quiet, it can feel suspicious, maybe even untrustworthy, like it hasn't been earned. And since their identity is so deeply tied to emotional depth, peace can feel weirdly like betrayal. So they reach for intensity instead. That's their home turf. They'll reach for intensity or maybe even start searching for what's missing again. They can also get so focused on what they're feeling and what it means that they unintentionally forget to check in on the people around them. In short, a four can be quite self absorbed. And even though they crave connection, they might distance themselves right as someone's getting close because being seen is what they want the most and also what terrifies them the most. A four will experience tremendous growth when they learn to stay with the joy when it shows up, not as a performance and not as a reward, but as something that they're allowed to feel just because they're human, just because they're here. When a type four falls in love, it's not casual, it is cinematic. They don't just want a partner, they want a muse, a mirror, a soulmate who can match their intensity and their depth. Think handwritten letters, late night heart to hearts, playlists for every milestone, and at least one shared existential crisis per season. At their core, fours want a connection that feels emotionally real. They crave authenticity, not just compatibility. That means that they'll show up with raw honesty, emotional insight, and a kind of poetic presence that can make even a Tuesday morning feel like a scene from a movie. But with that emotional depth comes vulnerability. Fours are wired to long for things, for what they don't have, for what they almost had, or for what they could have if love just went a little deeper. That longing can be beautiful, but it can also lead to disappointment if they start idealizing the relationship or feeling like their partner doesn't truly get them. They can swing between craving closeness and fearing it, especially if they worry that they are too much or too emotional or too complicated to hold. The irony, their depth is their gift. When they feel truly accepted, fours become soulful, generous, and incredibly devoted partners. Loving a four means showing up emotionally, staying curious about their inner world, and reminding them gently and consistently that they don't have to earn love by being extraordinary. They're already enough just by being who they are. What makes fours angry? Fours don't usually get loud angry. They get wounded angry. If they feel misunderstood, dismissed, or emotionally ghosted, that shimmering intensity that you thought was just broody mystique can turn volcanic. They want to be known in a way that feels sacred. So when someone shrugs off their feelings or tries to fix them instead of listening, they'll wonder why they even opened up to you. Another thing that really sets a four off is being treated like they're replaceable. Or worse, being compared to someone they perceive as less emotionally deep. They're not trying to be everyone's cup of tea. They're trying to be your carefully aged, ethically sourced, hand poured ceremonial elixir. And if that's not appreciated, the mood shifts fast. They also loathe being told to get over it or to be more positive. Fours live in the emotional landscape, and they believe that truth lives in the shadows just as much as the light. So if someone tries to bulldoze over their depth with toxic positivity, it feels like an erasure of their essence. Here's the thing, when a four is angry, it's often because they care deeply. Under the fire is usually a longing to be seen, held, and reminded that they're not too much. They're just brave enough to feel it all. What do they do about it? When a four gets angry, it's not always obvious at first. There's no desk flipping or shouting, usually. Instead, the energy shifts. Things go quiet, emotions intensify, and you can feel the change in the air. Rather than yelling, they retreat, although with drama. You might get one word answers, a melancholy reflection, or a story, or a carefully curated silence that says, if you don't know what you did, I'm certainly not going to explain it. They want you to feel that something's off before they spell it out. And once they do open up, be ready to go deep because it's rarely shallow. A four's anger often shows up wrapped in vulnerability. Like, I'm not just mad, I'm hurt. And here's why that matters. Sometimes their intensity turns artistic. A playlist, a poem, a cutting comment disguised as a philosophical observation. Fours have a way of turning pain into performance, equal parts expression and protection. Underneath it all, they're not trying to be dramatic just for the sake of drama. They're trying to be honest. And when they let you see the hurt beneath the anger, that, my friend, is trust. So don't miss the invitation. Why do they do this? For fours, emotional honesty is strength. While other types might try to hide or minimize their feelings, fours believe in bringing them out into the light. Sometimes it's elegant, sometimes it's messy, but it's always meaningful. They don't express anger or sadness just to vent. They're actually trying to understand something deeper. Like, why did this hurt so much? What does this feeling say about who I am? There's always a search for meaning behind the emotion, and they want you on that quest with them. When they withdraw or monologue or dramatically exit stage left, it's usually not to punish you, it's to protect themselves. If they sense rejection or indifference or emotional distance, their defenses kick in. Because for a four, not being seen feels like abandonment. And if they're in pain, they want it to matter. They need to know that what they're feeling isn't just emotional noise, it's part of a bigger story, something with weight, something with soul. Even their anger has an artistic edge because they don't want to just be upset. They want to be understood in their being upset. It's not about looking strong or composed, it's about being real and being loved in that realness, not despite it. So, what gives joy to a four? Fours come alive when something hits them right in the soul, when a lyric feels like it was written just for them, or a quiet moment somehow makes the whole world feel poetic. Their joy is layered, it's rich, and full of emotional texture. It's not about simple pleasure, it's about resonance. More than anything, fours light up when they feel seen, not just for their talents or ideas, but for the beautiful contradictions that they carry, their softness and strength, their longing and love, their chaos and clarity. Being understood in all of their nuance, that is joy for a four. They also thrive when they get to express what's inside. Give a four a pen, a canvas, a melody, or even just a deep question, and they will turn it into something true. Joy for them often arrives through creation. And when it comes to relationships, surface level won't cut it. Fours find joy in deep, unfiltered connection, the kind where masks drop and souls speak. Whether it's one late night conversation or a shared moment of silence that means something, they're here for the depth. At their most joyful, fours remind us that beauty can live right alongside pain and that both are worth feeling all the way through. A four in the workplace isn't just here to do a job, they are here to make art. That might look like designing something breathtaking, writing something soul stirring, or just rethinking the entire onboarding process so that it actually feels human. They're driven by meaning, not metrics. If a project aligns with their values, watch them pour their whole heart into it. But if it feels shallow or soulless, good luck getting them to respond to that email without sighing dramatically and announcing to one and all how excruciating it feels. Fours bring emotional intelligence that's off the charts. They can walk into a room and immediately sense the vibe. Who's tense? Who's tuned out? Who's pretending everything's fine but is secretly unraveling? This is energy reading at its finest, and it's a remarkable gift. Of course, when they're overwhelmed or feeling unseen, that gift can turn stormy. They might get moody or withdraw or ghost their Slack notifications. But at their best, fours bring depth, authenticity, and a sense of purpose that's impossible to fake. They remind everyone that work doesn't have to be robotic, it can be real, and it can be real fun. And real, when done with intention, is always where the magic happens. So let's look now at the arrows and wings for a type 4. This is how we move around the Enneagram. Every type does this, and it's helpful to understand how we grow, adapt, and react under stress. That's where the arrows and wings come in. With your wings, your main Enneagram type is central to your personality, but your wings, the numbers on either side of your type or flanking your type, influence how you express your main number. Some people lean real strongly toward one wing, and others use both of them, but just at different times. With the arrows, each type has two more numbers that it connects to, the number that it moves to in strength or growth, and the number that it moves to in stress. So this explains why we don't act the same way all the time. Under pressure, we can slip into the struggles of our stress number. When we're thriving, we gain strengths from our growth number or our strength number. When you start understanding these various movements, you can start to see the Enneagram as a map that people use to navigate situations instead of a box that people are stuck in. By paying attention to these movements, we gain self awareness, balance, and the ability to make intentional choices instead of reacting on autopilot. All right, so let's talk about the four when they feel stress. When a four hits stress, they don't always spiral inward. They sometimes spiral outward into full on helper mode when they go to the type two, but not the healthy, boundaried kind of helper mode. Instead, this is a let me earn your love by being emotionally indispensable to you mode. It's subtle at first. They might start checking in more, offering support, intuiting your needs before you even speak them. Those are classic type 2 characteristics. But behind that caretaking is a fear. If I'm not needed, I'm not safe. If I'm not lovable, I'll be left behind. In this space, fours can start abandoning their own emotional truth in order to caretake for others, hoping that in return, they'll receive the love that they long for. And if that doesn't happen, whew, cue the quiet resentment, the aching sense that they're giving everything but still not being chosen. They might suppress their own needs, play the emotional hero, or mold themselves into the perfect partner or friend, anything to stay connected. But it's a disconnection from self that's dressed up as generosity. Fours can catch themselves doing this, though, reaching out before turning in. And they can intentionally remind themselves that their worth isn't based on how much they do for other people. Then they can go back to celebrating their innate ability to stay present with their own heart, even when it's hurting. The four goes to the one in their strength. When a four starts growing, that dramatic highs and lows, those don't disappear. They just get tempered by clarity and structure and a fierce sense of inner alignment, like the one. It's like their soul music finally finds a solid rhythm. Rather than getting swept up in the moods or identity crises, they begin asking, what's true? What do I know right now? What is right? What matters? And then, wild twist, they actually act on it. No more waiting for the perfect feeling to hit. No more disappearing until inspiration strikes. Just showing up consistently with integrity. Fours in growth stop romanticizing the idea of who they could be and start embodying who they are. They get practical, disciplined, even a little organized. They also stop using feelings as the sole compass and start weighing intention and impact and fairness. This doesn't mean that they lose their sensitivity. It means that they pair it with wisdom. And when a four merges their creative heart with a strong moral backbone, they become a force of grounded beauty, justice, and emotional truth. The kind of person who doesn't just feel deeply, they lead and love and they create with purpose. Now let's talk about the wings. For a four with a three wing, this four doesn't just feel things, they package those feelings into something fabulous: a song, a speech, an outfit, or an entire identity. It's giving artsy main character energy with a touch of curated excellence. If you'll remember, the three is a hard worker. The three wing adds ambition to the four's introspection. Now, think of it this way: the four is all about being, the three is all about doing. So a four with a three wing combines being and doing in a beautiful way that is hard for other Enneagram types to compete with. So instead of just journaling about deep emotions, they might publish the journal or win an award for it and give a heartfelt TED talk about vulnerability. They want to be emotionally real, yes, but they'd also like to get a standing ovation for it. Thank you very much. There's a push pull here, though, because the four wants to be deeply authentic, but the three wants to look good doing it. So sometimes they lean into performance, sharing their pain in a way that is polished, beautiful. And hey, there's nothing wrong with that as long as the heart stays in it. At their best, this wing pairing is magnetic, expressive, creative, and able to move hearts while also making things happen. But when stress hits, they might get caught chasing admiration instead of connection, turning emotion into spectacle and confusing applause for intimacy. The work here is letting the spotlight warm you, not define you. Then we have the four with the five wing. When we combine the four with the five wing, we see the four lean into their more analytical, brainy side. Remember, the four is all about being. The five is all about thinking. So this means that the four with a five wing combines being and thinking in a quiet, complex kind of way. This four is less, let me cry dramatically in the rain, and more, let me journal about my emotional state while researching attachment theory at 2 a.m. The five wing cools the emotional fire of the core four just enough to add introspection, analysis, and a strong desire for personal space. They're not trying to be mysterious. It just takes a minute or a month for them to trust you enough to open up. But when they do, get ready for deep, nuanced insight with a side of philosophical musing. Think of them as a haunted library with mood lighting, quiet, beautiful, and full of secrets. They often feel a push pull between wanting to connect and needing to retreat. That five wing values privacy, knowledge, and independence. So while the four is feeling everything, the five is like, can we not talk about this until I've processed it in peace? At their best, this pairing is visionary. They bring emotional depth and intellectual clarity. They don't just express their truth, they understand it. But when they're overwhelmed, they might retreat too far inward, over identify with their pain, and sometimes struggle to reemerge from that. The growth here is letting people in, not after everything is perfectly articulated, but right in the middle of the mess. All right, so as we know, each type has three subtypes, which give more flavor to the main personality. Not all fours brood the same way. Each subtype brings its own flavor to the emotional cocktail. The same longing, different recipe. Self preservation fours are the most low key of the bunch. On the outside, they might seem calm, capable, even stoic, but inside is a symphony of feelings. They often hide their vulnerability behind independence because needing too much feels dangerous. They want to be seen, sure, but they also don't want to owe anyone for it. Social fours are more expressive. They'll cry with you and then post about it later and then analyze it in a group chat. They crave belonging, but only if they can show up as their full, emotionally technicolor selves. Their biggest fear is disappearing into the crowd and losing their identity in the process. Then we have the sexual four. Oh, honey, these are the high drama romantics with lightning in their veins. They don't just want connection, they want a soul level, destiny defying bond that rearranges your molecules. Passion is the point, intensity is the drug. And if they're not real, they'll burn it down just to feel something. Each subtype longs to be seen, but the way they go about it is vastly different. Now, whether or not you identify as a type 4, you have an inner 4. We're going to take a quiz here in just a minute. But let's first talk about finding your inner 4, because no matter how you score on the quiz, we all have this birthright access to the type 4. It's that part of you that craves authenticity, that aches when connection feels shallow, that's quietly searching for something more meaningful than just going through the motions. This isn't about being dramatic or melancholy. It's about honoring the part of you that feels deeply and isn't afraid to name that. It's the part that wants to create, to connect, to be real, even when it's messy. Your inner 4 might show up when you are heartbroken and journaling by candlelight, or when you're listening to a song that hits way too hard, or when you're staring at your life and thinking, is this it? Is this really me? But it also shows up in your courage to feel, in your ability to sit with someone in their pain instead of offering platitudes, in your instinct to seek beauty, not for show, but for the soul. Tapping into your fourness doesn't mean drowning in feelings. It means letting your emotions guide you toward truth, not away from it. So go ahead, feel it, name it, share it. That's where the real connection lives. Loving a four means loving someone who feels everything and doesn't always know how to turn the volume down. But that emotional intensity, it's not for show. It's their compass, their truth teller, their way of navigating a world that often feels a little too surface level. Fours aren't trying to be difficult when they get moody or pull away. They're trying to protect something tender. They've likely spent a lifetime feeling like they don't quite fit, like something essential is missing. So when they express longing or sadness, it's not a cry for attention, it's a plea for connection. They don't want you to fix their feelings, they want you to sit with them in it. To say, "You're not too much. I'm here. I see you." That kind of presence is healing for them. And don't underestimate their gifts. Fours often make the world more beautiful, more honest, more soulful, just by being themselves. If you can learn to hold space for their complexity without trying to simplify it, you'll discover a depth of relationship that is as rare as it is rewarding. Fours don't need you to understand everything. They just need to know you're willing to try. How to love your four. To love a four is to step into a world where everything means something. The music, the silence, the glance across the room. There's depth everywhere if you're willing to look. Fours will invite you into their inner world, but only if they trust you to handle it gently. They don't want shallow admiration, they want soul level resonance. So if a four opens up to you, listen with your whole heart. That's not drama, that's intimacy. They're often wrestling with the belief that they have to be special to be loved, that if they're just ordinary, they'll disappear. So the most healing thing you can do is to see them, really see them, and love them, not for what they create or feel, but for who they are beneath it all. Celebrate their creativity. Sit with them in their sadness. Let them be moody without assuming they're broken. And above all, remind them they are not too much. They're not lacking. They're not alone. You don't have to fix them. Just stay close. That's how a four learns to stay close to themselves. All right, so are you ready? Now we can see just how much four energy you have. This quiz is designed to help you see if type four is a strong part of who you are. We're going to read 15 statements that reflect the typical thoughts, feelings, and behaviors of a four. For each one, you'll rate yourself on a scale from 1 to 5, with 1 meaning not at all true, and 5 meaning very true. Then we'll tally up the score and see if you win a type 4 identity. I've copied the scale over to the next two slides so that you can remember which number stands for which score. Now, just remember that this isn't a test, it's just an awareness tool. Some of you might score high and think, yep, that's me. Others might see glimpses of themselves, but lean more towards another type. Either way, the goal is to better understand what drives you and maybe even spot where some of your behaviors come from. So be honest with your ratings for each of these statements, and let's see if the type 4 is central to how you operate. So we have the first set of questions. Many people see me as enigmatic. difficult, and contradictory. And I like that about myself. Number two, I tend to brood over my negative feelings for a long time before getting free of them. Number three, I often feel alone and lonely, even when I'm around people I'm close to. Number four, if I'm criticized or misunderstood, I tend to withdraw and sulk. Number five, I find it difficult to get involved with projects if I don't have creative control. Number six, I tend not to follow rules or to go along with expectations because I want to put my own special touch on whatever I do. Number seven, by most standards, I'm fairly dramatic and temperamental. Number eight, I tend to spend quite a bit of time imagining scenes and conversations that haven't necessarily happened. Number nine, I long for someone to rescue me and sweep me away from all of this dreary mess. Number 10, when things get tough, I tend to crumble and give up. Perhaps I give up too easily. Number 11, I can forgive almost anything except bad taste. Number 12, generally, I don't enjoy working too closely with others. 13, finding myself and being true to my emotional needs have been extremely important motivations for me. Number 14, I don't like either to take the lead or be a follower. Number 15, I am acutely aware of my intuitions, whether or not I have the courage to act on them. All right, so you can add your scores for the 15 statements for type 4, and your result will be between 15 and 75. The following guidelines may help you discover or confirm your personality type. If you got 15, you're probably not a type 4 or a 5 or a 9. If you got between 16 to 30, you're probably not a type 4. If you got 31 to 45, you most probably have similar challenges as a type 4 and or have a type 4 parent. If you got 46 to 60, you most likely have a 4 component, which means you are a 4 or you have a 4 as a wing or you have go to a 4 in one of your arrows. And if you have a 61 to 75 as your score, you are most likely a type 4. But you could still be another type if you're thinking too narrowly about the 4. So why this caution? Before you fully claim the Type 4 label, let's just pause and talk about why it's worth taking a closer look. It's easy to mistype yourself if you focus only on behavior instead of motivation. The Enneagram doesn't just ask what you do, it asks why you do it. There are a lot of people who feel big emotions. Lots of people love sad music, and plenty of people have been called too much. That doesn't make them fours. What makes someone a four is that their sense of self is built around a longing to be seen as original, authentic, and deeply significant. So if you scored high, great, sit with that and reflect on that, but also stay curious. Could you be another type who's had some four flavored seasons? Are you romanticizing the idea of being a four more than actually resonating with the core fear? So the goal isn't to land on a number today, it's to start asking good questions. And we'll just talk quickly about mistyping. Fours are some of the most self reflective people on the Enneagram, and still, they can absolutely mistype themselves. Fours often mistype as twos, especially if they're warm, relational, or feel emotionally responsible for others. But here's the difference: twos want to be needed, fours want to be understood. A two says, let me help you feel loved. A four says, let me show you who I really am. Please don't look away. Fours also mistype as ones, particularly if they're leaning into discipline, moral conviction, or self criticism. But the difference is that ones strive to be good, fours strive to be authentic. A one says, that isn't right. A four says, that isn't me. Fours may also confuse themselves with nines, especially when they feel emotionally overwhelmed and start to shut down. But nines avoid disconnection by keeping the peace. Fours fear disconnection because they feel too different to belong. So a nine says, it's fine, I'll go along with it. A four says, it is not fine. I don't know where I fit. And on the flip side, ones, sixes, and fives might mistype as fours because they feel different or misunderstood or emotionally complex. But here's the key: fours don't just feel different, they believe their identity is rooted in that difference. If someone says, you're just like everyone else, a true four will feel personally attacked. So if you're trying to sort it out, don't just ask what you do, ask what you fear. Ask what you hope people see in you. And that's where the real clarity comes in. And to close it out, we have, just for fun, some very important rules to follow when you want to write a poem. Naturally, the final act of the four deep dive is writing a poem, right? So here we go. Step one, feel everything all at once. Step two, light a candle. Step three, question your very existence. Step four, use at least one metaphor involving the moon, rain, or a bird in flight. Step five, cry. Step six, edit. Step seven, cry again. Step eight, find somewhere to share it publicly, preferably while crying. So as we close, let's raise a metaphorical quill to the fours in our lives. May we all learn to sit in our own depths and maybe even write a poem while we're down there.